But yeah, good afternoon and welcome to Yorkshire's latest webinar, which will take us through till around 2 o'clock. So if you've not joined our webinars before, you can join with the chat box, which is the little speech bubble there on the team screen. We've already got a number of questions that have come through to us, but at the same time, we're more than welcome in activity this afternoon. If you're following on Teams or if you're following on social media, you can tweet us at WTY Industry, or you can use the chat box, which is there. It says there's a little question mark there that you can press on, or you can press on the show conversation link there. Quick rundown of how this afternoon is going to work. The title of the webinar is Insights Through COVID, Past, Present and Future. As it suggests, we're going to look back at perhaps some of the learnings and perhaps some of the surprises that COVID threw our way, but also we're going to look at the present and the future in terms of what the future looks like for the tourism industry, I suppose the whole of the world to some extent, and welcome to Yorkshire's part that we can play in that. We'll give it another couple of minutes until everyone logs on. We're expecting close to 100 people today, which is great for a webinar at this time of year. When we first launched our webinars back at the start of lockdown, we had over 500 people subscribed. So the good news is that I think most of the industry is back working now, which is a good thing. So we really appreciate if you've taken an hour of your time to join us this afternoon. We've got a whole list of members, new members, historical members, which is great to see. People joining us for the first time. So when I get a chance, I will say hello to a few of you. We've also got a guest with us this afternoon, a lady called Liz Smales, who is working with Welcome to Yorkshire at the moment as an industry consultant, and we'll introduce Liz properly in a couple of minutes. But when I get a nod from my colleagues to start, we'll start. Yep. How many have we got on the call? 25. So we'll give it another couple of minutes before we really get into the meat of this. But a couple of questions I'd like to run through that you might want to think about in terms of answers for yourselves are as follows. So we've got Mark Farnsworth this afternoon, who's dialed in from Sheffield. So thank you, Mark. Mark Brayshaw, Brian Dunsby, Janet Jobber, Helen Coppin, Simon Brereton, Liz Smales, of course, Laginia Shepherd, Chris Clay, Hilary Farmery, all with a number of questions on you name it. Everything to do with their own business, the industry itself, and so on and so forth. What we'd also like to talk through with this afternoon is our own strategy. Welcome to Yorkshire's 3 to 5 year strategy, which was conceived back in January. And the slide on the front of it was a big mass participation event, a gig, Embrace playing at the Peace Hall in Halifax and various other ones at Sheffield Arena and Leeds Arena and Harlow Car Gardens and so on and so forth. But of course, things have changed dramatically in the last few months, whereby mass participation events, whilst high up on our agenda, realistically, we don't know yet when we can follow that through. So you'll probably see a subtle change to the presentation when we go through with it. Okay, ready to kick off. So yes, welcome to our latest webinar, which, as I mentioned before, is an insights webinar on the past, present and future of dealing with COVID-19. I think it would be remiss of us to think that COVID is going away anytime soon. And I think if you go back to January 2020, when we were all probably expecting a bumper year, certainly in tourism, certainly within the industry at large, and you probably all had your own hopes, fears, anticipations and aspirations, but you probably didn't expect words like furlough, face masks, social distancing, toilet roll, job support schemes to be the most searched terms on both Google and social media, but we've all come attuned to such words. Furlough was a word that existed, but had you ever used it? Social distancing, I think we understand what it means, but did we ever expect to be practicing it day by day in our daily lives and introducing it into our business? So it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that's not going away. So I think for the first few months, Welcome to Yorkshire adopted COVID. We accepted that COVID was going to be here for a number of months, maybe 3 to 6 months. Did we expect to be going into our winter season with COVID extrapolating and I suppose growing at a certain rate and really interfering with our lives? But I think there are some things that COVID has taught us that we can probably reintroduce to our work-life balance that actually will probably recalibrate how we think about things in a positive way. Plenty of negatives, but there's plenty of opportunities as well. So as I mentioned, you can join in with the chat box on the screen there. You can also join in at Welcome to Yorkshire Industry. So if you're not following us on Twitter, it's at WTY Industry. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce Liz Smales to you. I'll introduce Liz before you can see her, and Liz can give us a quick couple of minutes introduction to her and her life so far as an expert within the industry. So Liz comes as a member. She's a Welcome to Yorkshire member, but she's also an industry expert. Liz hails from Boroughbridge, and she spent 17 years working in hospitality and the tourism industry across Asia with multinational hotel groups. She returned to Yorkshire 3 years ago. The right decision, Liz. Although it's a rainy day in West Yorkshire today, so you might be pining for the soft sands of Indonesia, etc. She's since established her own accommodation company, so she fully understands what it's like to work within the industry, pre-COVID, post-COVID, but also during maybe not a pandemic, but a tsunami. So a complete crisis that affected Southeast Asia and most of the wider world as well. She was the general manager for one of our member hotels until COVID struck. That was the Tennant Arms in the Yorkshire Dales, and she's now marketing and communications officer with Skipton Bid. So she transcends a number of industries that can chip in today. She can explain how she helped rebuild a marketing strategy for hotels and the tourism industry, as I say, in Southeast Asia. And a fun fact, she's the granddaughter of Yorkshire and England cricketer Frank Smales. So before we go to the panel or some of the questions in the Q&A box, Liz, do you want to just give a quick introduction to yourself as well? Anything that I've missed out there?
Thank you very much, James, and thank you for inviting me to join today. That's a pretty extensive history of my background, but yeah, certainly on the crisis communications side of things, I've probably got a little bit too much experience for my liking in Asia. So I went over to Asia in 2003 on a 6-month sabbatical, and that did indeed become 17 years. So through that, it was 2003, as I mentioned, and we had H1N1, SARS, bird flu, the tsunami, which was very similar to what we've experienced with the pandemic, when it was just complete wipeout. And there were many takings from that I could see straight away with the COVID pandemic as well, in terms of the lockdown, the need for confidence, the reassurance, that collaboration within the local community, that reliance on your local community, and to build that up. And collaborations are key, and that is still the case now, certainly as we go through to possibly a second wave, but certainly local lockdowns. I think everybody has recognised and valued that from the first phase when it really hit here in March. I still follow the news in Asia and saw this coming into January, mid-February. I remember it was February the 13th exactly when I actually used my mobile phone to call the hotel landline just to make sure it was working, because we weren't getting any calls, no emails were coming through. I counted 3 cars to go past all day, and that was the sign that we were getting very, very close. We actually started putting measures in place then, and I was telling people then this is going to be September at the earliest. Most people thought I was a little bit mad and really couldn't comprehend it. Well, here we are in October, and that is holding true. So certainly my Asian experience going through H1N1, SARS, bird flu and the tsunami definitely helped me prepare and carry through the last 6 months. We've managed to survive, certainly with the accommodation that we have on our own business, Blue Otter Boats. We went from no bookings in June, and then as soon as Boris made that announcement, within a week, like most of you, I'm sure, that have self-catering accommodations or similar, we were then fully booked right through till the end of October. And I think there's certainly, even if you have new guests coming now, we're getting request to extend that season. So normally we wouldn't cruise with our narrowboat business until mid-March and then through till the end of October. And we're getting inquiries to extend that. So we will be doing that into November, which is a positive sign. But we're communicating with new guests and new customers, and that reinsurance is still key. So that, I think, is really the key takeaway I have, is that we're good to go. That Visit Britain sign is very clear. The new measures we've put in, we keep communicating that, and we show our affiliation badge from Welcome to Yorkshire. That instills confidence. I got 6 direct bookings within 10 days of prominently showing that on the website. So certainly for people who don't know Yorkshire, who are out of the county, they need every point of reassurance possible just to instill that confidence.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Appreciate you coming on this afternoon. I'm just going to run through some questions that you can think about, Liz, in terms of answering, but also people on the panel this afternoon. So I did start them at 12:35, but I was on mute, so I apologise. So I'll read a couple of them again. So good afternoon to Mark Farnsworth, who has asked about tourism plans and support for tourism businesses, especially through what's going to be a long winter. And Mark works within the cinema industry, so any up-to-date grants that are available or business support. And does anybody have a roadmap for the return of mass gatherings such as food festivals? Many of you speaking with your local MPs at the moment to find out the test beds for future planning. So we're going to go through the Welcome to Yorkshire strategy in the next few minutes in terms of planning for future festivals. But I suppose my background in football recently can answer that. I spoke with a couple of colleagues who are looking to put professional sports matches on in the next few weeks. And if you think that the Royal Albert Hall in the next few months will be operating at, I think, a quarter or 50% of capacity, an indoor event, but yet sports and outdoor festivals aren't yet open to the public. So we'll be going through that, and we'll be bringing you some insight from our own MPs and the Culture Minister on that. Other questions include how best to attract visitors from outside your area. In particular, this one is from Harrogate, to participate in major attractions like the Christmas market. How can Welcome to Yorkshire extend its work to areas not covered at present? And that's a great question, actually, because, let's think about this. Welcome to Yorkshire. Here we are in our offices in Leeds, but our remit is to cover the whole county from north, south, east and west. But more importantly, how can we help amplify your message to bring audiences in? So this morning we've just shared some great news from Visit Leeds about Leeds conventions being voted as one of the best places to host a convention and industry events in the country. The problem with that is that the events industry is on stop. However, when these events do come back to our major cities like Leeds, like York, like Harrogate, like Hull, like Sheffield and various other places, it isn't just those cities and towns that can benefit. And our job is to amplify the message before the event, during the industry and afterwards. We have a question here from Helen at Muddy Boots Walking that wants to know a little bit more about our Yorkshire campaign. So we'll bring that in around the hour mark. So Yorkshire is a multi-layered campaign for 2021. It's a 12-month campaign that extols the virtues of walking. Now, if you think about walking in Yorkshire, you probably think about the Yorkshire Dales National Park or the Peak District or the North York Moors or even the coast. But actually, our campaign is much more than that. It's urban walks, city walks, town walks, cultural walks, walks with your family, walking at work, walking to stay fit, walking to keep fit, walking to keep the mind fit, keep the body fit. But actually, there's so many layers that we can bring into that. Other questions include what campaigns do Welcome to Yorkshire have planned that they can get involved with, so we can come on to that. And what help is available for tourist attractions which have been adversely affected by COVID-19. But I think it would be useful to probably start with our strategy, if that makes sense. I'm just going to share a screen with you, so hopefully you'll be able to see this in a minute. So if someone nods and tells me that they can see it, Natalie, can people see that? Yeah, you can see it, Liz? Perfect. Okay, and you can hear me? Yeah, okay, I'll carry on. So on the screen there, you have a Yorkshire for All opening slide, a place to visit, work, study and live. You'll recognise the bottom three pictures, hopefully. That's the Peace Hall in Halifax, where Embrace played only last year, I think it was. In the middle, you have a Caribbean Carnival, and on the right, you have the North York Moors, all representing a modern Yorkshire. But the top screen, as I mentioned, was previously a big festival. But now this is an outdoor cinema attraction that was held earlier this summer. And on the screen there, you have a very famous film, and you have lots of people in cars. They're all in social bubbles. So drive-in cinemas aren't anything new to the world. But in the absence of being able to congregate in groups and be able to go out with your family or friends on a whim, the whole world has changed. So we have to change as well as an organisation, but also the industry does. So these three images are something that we'll talk about a little bit further. But I suppose it just demonstrates the way that the world is changing. When will we next see the bottom left image? When will we next see the bottom middle image? The bottom right image is perfect. That isn't going to change. And actually some of the beauty of Yorkshire will never change, and some of the ways that we can still enjoy it won't change. But at the same time, we have to work with a built environment, our cities, our sectors, such as the arts and culture sectors, but also food and drink. And there has to be a way forward for us during this pandemic. Okay, so I'm just going to move the screen on. So welcome to Yorkshire's vision, if you didn't know, is to become the global marketing agency for Yorkshire, promoting the county as a destination to visit, work, study and live. A Yorkshire for all, and the key terms there are visit, of course. We want to attract a global audience to visit Yorkshire. But actually, as part of our strategy going forward, we also want to attract people to come and study, work and live here, because of course, when we're not working, when we're not studying, we're living and we're spending money in the Yorkshire economy. Often the tourism economy, the visitor economy, because we're spending it at museums or attractions, pubs, bars, restaurants, and many other ways that we can spend our hard-earned cash and time. But our strategy, especially in a post-COVID world, and pre to that, has to be one of collaboration, working in partnership with public and private sector stakeholders to demonstrate Welcome to Yorkshire's value and financial viability. You can't pick up a newspaper at the moment without seeing Welcome to Yorkshire's accounts being questioned, or our recent history, or our sustainability going forward. But hopefully over the next hour and a half, you'll see that Welcome to Yorkshire is a vibrant prospect and is working very, very hard with the public sector, our local authority partners that thankfully will support us through the next 6, 9 and 12 months. But we also need our private sector members to understand how we can really support them. If that's via webinars, if that's via directing them to financial aid, if that's helping them with their own marketing and their own publicity, or actually it might be actually helping them to see bookings back to their site. And there is a new part of our strategy that we're bringing into Yorkshire.com that we're working on now, which is an app that hopefully will be not seen until the guts of next year. But before that, we hope to introduce a booking platform working with Visit Britain and an organisation called TXGB, whereby if you are an accommodation provider or a visitor attraction and you are wanting to sell tickets, the best place to do that might be through Yorkshire.com with our 12 million unique visitors a year. So we have to demonstrate financial viability for ourselves and be commercial, but we also have to demonstrate to our members that pay fees that we can also offer them commercial expertise, real digital reach and a diversity of campaigns. Our strategy objectives are there, and I'll share this document with anyone that asks for it, but we need to become less about Welcome to Yorkshire, more about Yorkshire. And especially, as I say, looking over the last 9 months, we've demonstrated that some of the opportunities that exist for some of our members, some of the campaigns that we've jumped into, we probably wouldn't have done before, such as banging the drum for local micro businesses across the county that were falling through a government loophole, whether you were a bed and breakfast owner in Gargrave paying council tax as opposed to business rates. It's not something that Welcome to Yorkshire has lobbied for in the past, but it's something that we are now trying to do more and more on behalf of our members, at whatever level they are. and in whatever sector they are. Internally, we've got to agree a clear purpose and set of values and culture within the organisation, and I think we're doing that. We've transformed the organisation in terms of our digital output by inviting much more rich content from both members and individuals. We have a platform to share your news, and it was great over the last few weeks and months to have newer members such as Knaresborough Online join and see the way that they have progressed from an affiliate membership, which was a free offering at the start of COVID to demonstrate that we wanted to work hard with our members, to see them progress to an actual member and see some of their output actually gain a global audience via social media, but also through BBC Look North and YouTube. We talk often internally about the global diaspora of Yorkshire. There are 5 million people that live in Yorkshire, and we have an opportunity to engage with those 5 million people. But if you think about the 30 to 40 million connections across the UK that live in Yorkshire, or that have lived in Yorkshire, or that worked in Yorkshire, that have got a family member in Yorkshire, it's really important that we bring them into the conversation. And then if we extend that across the world, there's hundreds of millions of people that are connected with the county. We need more video, we need more experience, we need more trends happening within our county to share with these people that are the regular visitors. We want to collect data for both ourselves and local authority and private sector partners so we can help them with decision making. And let me give you a quick example. LNER, who are one of our private sector partners, run trains regularly from London all the way through Grantham, Sheffield, Leeds, York, Newcastle, all the way up to Scotland. If we can inherit their audience and if we can share our audience with them, they can probably make decisions on how often to run trains, where to and from, and also idiosyncrasies such as who is coming, when are they coming, and who are they coming with, such as are they travelling with a dog? If so, and if they're one of the 7 million dog owners in the UK, we can probably share this expertise and insight with some of our dog-friendly hotels, perhaps on the Yorkshire coast or in cities like Sheffield, Leeds, York, Doncaster, etc. We hope to develop a new commercial model to attract long-term funding, both the public and private sector, to play a part in that. And of course, you've seen over the last few weeks and months, we've launched our new personal membership, which includes a host of benefits such as value-added products, but also tree planting schemes. So we're giving back to the Yorkshire ecology as well as the economy. Okay, I won't race through the whole presentation, but what we do want to demonstrate over the next few weeks and months is that we have a real understanding of what's happening in the north, south, east and west of the county. So going back to some of the questions as to how we can help answer some of our members' questions, we really need to understand each region. So we now have an area manager responsible for looking after the north, south, east and west of the county. Previously, we had membership executives, business development executives that would do that role, that will continue to do it. But also our area managers will really become experts and I suppose patch reporters on these particular areas, so that when we have our regular meetings, if you're in York or if you're in Hull or Leeds or Sheffield or any surrounding areas on the coast or in our national parks or many of our sub-regions, you'll really have an ear direct into what's happening at Welcome to Yorkshire, but also back out to you as well. So it's going to cut both ways, this strategy. We need to know what you're up to so that we can amplify your messages and vice versa. We're going to promote Yorkshire as a place to live and work, notwithstanding the challenges that we've got out there, such as rail and transport networks and clog-jammed M62s and M1s and A64s, although at the moment it's quite pleasant to drive on Yorkshire's roads. But there are many reasons to come and work and live in Yorkshire, but these are things that we need to work on going forward. We want to attract the best students in the world. If you think about international students contributing 3 times their tuition fees to the Yorkshire economy, it's really important that whilst we attract students to Yorkshire to study, we extol the virtues of why they should come and live here, work here and spend their disposable income here. If you think about every international student that lands in our county, every photograph they're taking of York Minster, of the Yorkshire coast, of Yorkshire Wildlife Park, they are demonstrating this to a new audience that hasn't seen it before. So whilst we may criticise ourselves for not going to see some of the wonderful areas of outstanding natural beauty. Imagine coming for the first time. So studying is a massive part of our strategy going forward, as is demonstrating our ability to lead in the film industry, arts and culture. We've seen with all the success of All Creatures Great and Small, Gentleman Jack, Downton Abbey and the Yorkshire Shepherdess, that people want to come to Yorkshire to walk in the footsteps of their TV heroes, or perhaps some of their fictional characters that they've read about in books or on the large screen. So being a leader in film, arts and culture is a massive part of our strategy going forward. We of course want to attract world-class sport, but as we'll come on to shortly, when can we next see a global sporting event or a regional sporting event take place on our shores? If you've watched the Premier League football over the last few weeks, or if rugby league is your sport, or even cricket, it just isn't the same without a fan base. We can pipe the crowd noise in, but let's be honest, until crowds come back, none of the businesses around the hinterland of sports stadia can benefit. So it isn't just events spaces that can benefit from tourists and visitors coming to them. It's the tea rooms, it's the taxi firms, it's the hotels, it's the bus companies and the train companies surrounding these events that can benefit. So it's something that we definitely need to work on, both with DCMS and local government, as to when we can next have live sport, but live events back on in the county. We want to secure a long-term future for the Tour de Yorkshire. Of course, that's going to be difficult. The biggest unticketed event held in the UK over the last 5 years needs to come back to the county. It's been denied this year, but it's something that we want to bring back in perpetuity. Food and drink is the fastest growing economy in Yorkshire. There seems to be a new gin distillery cropping up every other week, which is great. But match that with breweries or match that with food producers. And Welcome to Yorkshire really have to put on events that will demonstrate Yorkshire's placeholder on the world food and drink economy. And again, that's something that's part of our strategy. If we can't put the events on, we can still extol the virtues of the best restaurants, the best food producers, the best micro festivals that we can put on over the next few years. Last couple of slides. We need to move at pace to deal with COVID-19 or COVID-20 or COVID-21, whatever the next pandemic is, and they will come, let's be honest. The digital world hasn't slowed down. In fact, we've seen our follower growth exponentially increase over the last few weeks and months. We have over 270,000, in fact over 280,000 followers now on Twitter. But I'm disappointed with that figure. I want it to be near 1 million so that we can really fight fire with Visit Scotland, Visit Wales, Visit New Zealand, Visit Denmark, because we have the same population. And if we can amplify these messages to 1 million people, whether they're both in Yorkshire or outside the region, we can really put down a marker to demonstrate that Yorkshire is one of the places to visit across the globe. We do need engaging content, so we will be asking our partners and our members to share not just videos but pictures and their own stories of how members and people, visitors, are enjoying their own Yorkshire. There's nothing more influential than a video posted by an authentic account that isn't being asked to do it, that isn't being sponsored to do it, that demonstrates how they're enjoying Yorkshire. And eventually, our strategy is to build an app. If you land in Florida or Dubai or Gare du Nord in France or in Shanghai, you will be asked within minutes of arrival to download an app that will give you added value reasons to enjoy spending time and money in a region. If Welcome to Yorkshire and build an app over the next few years, we can really condense data, we can share data, and we can segment data so that people enjoying their time in our country can really tailor-make their visit. We can prompt and excite visitors about things they may not be aware of, promote other areas of the county, such as the coast, theatres and museums when they arrive in Leeds or Sheffield or York train stations. We can move them around the county, and ultimately we can encourage them to stay longer and spend more. So I'm going to come out of the presentation now and pass over to Liz, if that's okay, with one of the first questions. So Liz, how could any visitor attraction, whether that's a hotel whether that's a museum, whether that's an industry convention centre, whether that's a town or city, use Welcome to Yorkshire or themselves or any event to attract other visitors around the county. So it's about moving people around the county. So, for example, if Harrogate, if Leeds, if York are able to put Christmas markets on, how can surrounding attractions or accommodation providers tap into this flow of people coming into a particular town or city?
Hi, James. Thank you very much. Well, certainly looking with my Skipton bid hat on, where we have, unfortunately, our Christmas market can't go ahead, but there are events around the town and around the county that are, and it's about communicating that and making sure that everybody is informed. And it's a little challenging now because print publications are not there. We have to rely on digital communication. But we're also looking to participate in Visit Britain's Escape the Everyday campaign, which is great to ensure that holiday extension is through the November, December, January periods. And we're seeing bookings coming through for that already. And as I mentioned before, even on our own accommodation, we're getting inquiries into November where we wouldn't normally be seeing that. So it's certainly collaboration, making sure that multi-day stay is filled with information where they can go on day trips from that one. Guests are not wanting to move around and stay in 3 different types of accommodation. I think, well, like most of you, we're certainly recognising in the hotels in Skipton and the surrounding area, the average length of stay has increased from 3 nights up to anywhere between 6 and 9 nights. And guests want to pack that time with things to do. They want experiences. They're more likely to go less off the beaten track. They want somewhere that is familiar. Again, that confidence that this is a COVID secure, that reassurance is important. Keep banging that drum. You can never bang that loud enough. And then just communicate with the hotels if you're putting on an event, or if you have an attraction that is ticketed and where you can control the number of attendees at any one time, then that is a very much preferred option at the moment with travellers. So communicate that with the hotels, make sure everybody is informed of the occupancy, the capacity, try and build that into stay packages if that's possible. Anything like that creates that experience is going to bring people to your door.
Thank you, Liz. Okay, so if you want to join in with the conversation this afternoon, you can do so with the chat box, or you can follow us on Twitter, which is @WTY Industry. Okay, next couple of questions coming in. We've got one from Simon Brereton from York City Council, and we have, as we mentioned, Helen at Muddy Boot. How can we involve ourselves in Welcome to Yorkshire campaigns such as Walkshire, and can you answer a little bit more about Walkshire? We'll answer that shortly, but another question here from Janet Jobber at the Colne Valley Museum. How can Welcome to Yorkshire extend its work to areas not covered at present? Okay, so we'll answer that first before we come on to Walkshire. So listen, let's get the elephant out of the room. Welcome to Yorkshire has had a difficult 18 months. But prior to that, Welcome to Yorkshire has been leading from the front, both regionally, nationally, and at times internationally, with how a destination marketing organisation such as ourselves can attract a global audience. And it can do that by attracting global events such as the Tour de France and the Tour de Yorkshire, but also participating in well-known global events such as the Chelsea Flower Show and many other festivals. Now, in the absence of some of these festivals going forward, we have to roll with the punches and look into the future and look and see what the next big participation events are going to be. We all saw during lockdown that walking became everyone's favourite activity. It almost became a holiday within an afternoon where families or couples or individuals or friends would get together if they were allowed in their social bubbles, an hour walking. That may have been walking around their local estate. If they were lucky enough to live on the coast, it could have been walking along the coast. But actually, what we all realised was that we had a new appreciation of what was on our doorstep. And I know I certainly did, finding Ginnells and Snickets where I didn't think Ginnells and Snickets existed. So we're looking at a campaign called Yorkshire next year to run from January all the way through to December. An all-encompassing campaign that will hopefully include everyone, that will hopefully involve everyone. And actually, if you're listening to this thinking, there's no way that Yorkshire can Welcome to Yorkshire can involve us in a campaign like Yorkshire, let me just share a quick slide with you. Again, let me just see if this comes up. Bear with me a second. Nope, that's not the slide. Okay, here we go. So can you all see that slide? Yep. Okay, and we should be able to move it to the left or the right. 1 second. Okay, so Yorkshire, as it suggests, is a campaign that involves people walking. But we don't just necessarily walk in the countryside. We don't necessarily walk in the county. We walk to work. We walk at work. We walk around our city centre. We walk around our town centres. We walk when we don't necessarily think we're walking. And actually, if you think about walking, everyone can do it without any equipment. Everyone can do it without any expertise. And everyone can do it to actually reduce their own carbon footprint. But actually, we want to bring walking to the masses across the whole of the county. And we want people to really understand that walking just isn't a pursuit that can be done at the weekend in the great outdoors. We need to bring people into city centres, cultural walks, historical walks, ghost walks, educational walks, walks around towns and cities from the oldest building to the newest building. Around restaurants, around pubs, around cafes. We're partnering with Yorkshire Cancer Research, whereby we think we can demonstrate that actually walking can have not only a health benefit both on the mind but also on the body. 30% of all cancer deaths can be reduced by physical activity. So actually, by making walking a pursuit that is also good for the body and the mind, we can also demonstrate an economic impact for both members of Welcome to Yorkshire, but actually any business within Yorkshire itself. Think about walking around the walled city of York and a walk sponsored each day, almost like an advent calendar for 365 days of the year, whereby a small tea room, a small restaurant or a museum or visitor attraction can control our social media for one day, whereby the walk that will be devised by either ourselves or our members or influencers would walk around the city for a mile, 3 miles, or you can blank the whole day out for 5 miles. The whole purpose of this is for people to understand York, for example, or it could be Doncaster, it could be Barnsley, it could be Skipton, it could be Bridlington. And actually, we can attract the serious walkers, we can attract the novice walkers, the family walkers, the walkers that want to walk around Whitby on a ghost walk. We can attract people that want to walk around Grassington to do the All Creatures Great and Small film location walk. But it could easily be, as I said, York City Centre or Leeds City Centre or Sheffield City Centre to walk from the oldest museum to the latest. It could be sponsored walks whereby members can actually attract visitors to take part in a variety of walks whereby they'll be asked to stop at various places en route for lunch, for afternoon tea, for an evening meal, and so on and so forth. The benefits outweigh the negatives. It might not be the sexiest campaign at the moment, but it will be when we launch this in hopefully December or January of 2021. And we'd invite any of you to send any particular questions in if you're thinking right now that Yorkshire really isn't for you or you can't see the benefits for it. But we do want to make Yorkshire the walking capital of the world, and with that demonstrate the economic impact that walking can bring in. So one of the questions here is, how can you involve yourself in Welcome to Yorkshire's campaigns? Email us at info@yorkshire.com, tweet us, and Natalie, my colleague, or Liz, or any of our area managers can probably send through a presentation to really underpin the benefits and the value of walking. Liz, I'm just going to pass this over to you. So you joined Welcome to Yorkshire as a member back in, well, I think it was the start of lockdown, wasn't it, really? And you've progressed from being an affiliate member, which is our entry-level service, to now a paid-up member. But what are the campaigns that you would like Welcome to Yorkshire to look forward to in 2021, understanding that COVID isn't going away? Walking is going to be a campaign that, of course, transcends all sectors, all genres, all market segments, but also moving away from Yorkshire. What campaigns do you think Welcome to Yorkshire should be demonstrating that you can get involved in at whatever level going forward?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, certainly, we progressed, as James mentioned, from the affiliate member, and we saw that benefited us straight away. As I think I previously said, we got 6 direct bookings straight away, which for us is great. We don't have to give, normally we work through our agents, and we give 16% for every booking. So that was a big saving for us. 1 week on an hourboat is £1,200. So you can do the maths on that. It pays it very, very quickly. So that instilling confidence with guests coming out of the county was massive for us. And we are noticing that we're getting clientele, and that's not just us in Skipton, but also the guest houses and hotels around the area. The drive time for the guests is between 5 and 9 hours. So much further south, whereas previously it might have been east and west coast. From the north, we're getting a lot more guests coming from Edinburgh. So, there's that wider campaign is important for us to get that awareness out to an audience. So joining Welcome to Yorkshire and getting involved with the Escape the Everyday campaigns and the wider campaigns that they get involved with Visit Britain is key. But now that Yorkshire is also getting a lot of coverage for the foodies, and certainly our guests are foodies that we're getting. They want fine dining, they want to know where they can get good restaurants, they want to be able to walk the Pennine Way, and where can they go to a restaurant or a good pub as well. So for me, it is the food and campaigns that are going to be coming that spotlight that Yorkshire is now a food destination. It doesn't have to be down south if you want to go to a Michelin restaurant, or just good food, a variety of food. And certainly the walking campaigns, that's going to be key, because a lot of our guests do bring their hiking boots. They want to walk the Pennine Way from the boat. In Skipton itself, we have the Lady Anne's Way that goes from Skipton Castle all the way up to Penrith. So many of the guests come doing that, or even just for day trips out into the Dales. And along the canal. It's the longest canal in England, the Leeds-Liverpool Canal, and the towpaths have just had significant investment to upgrade them, and that traffic is being used cycling and walking significantly. So walking, food, and national campaigns, and then certainly looking forward to international campaigns. We're getting inquiries from America, but also Germany and Australia for next year. So that would be key for us too.
Can you all hear me again? Apologies. I'm just going to share my screen again just for a second, just to follow up on a point that Liz mentioned. Okay, you see that? Okay, so as I mentioned, the Yorkshire campaign isn't just about the great outdoors and the signature walks along the coast or our national parks, but actually a couple of questions that we've got in here. How can we involve ourselves in the Yorkshire campaign if we're an urban area or if we're a city centre? And that comes in from a couple of people, but including Sam Brereton from York City Council, Helen Coppin, but also Libby Bateman here. So how can Welcome to Yorkshire involve all sectors of the tourism economy? So if you just read from left to right, Yorkshire isn't just necessarily about our locations that are well known for walking, but we have to bring in our towns and cities, groups, individuals, families, colleagues, as we demonstrate the physical and mental health benefits of walking as a recreational activity whilst at work. As I mentioned earlier on, there are so many benefits, but there are also so many genres, whether it's heritage walks, canal walks, food and drink walks, ghost walks, TV location walks. But actually, one of the questions I think from Laura Wood, no, actually, it's from, is it from Laura Libby about sustainable walking and moving forward. So, we have an agenda within our local authorities to reduce our carbon footprint. We have an agenda to increase our ability to promote physical activity and tackle obesity. Yorkshire can do that. Walking can do that, but also in terms of sustainability and responsible walking. I think we saw with the pandemic at its height that people had to understand how to respect the outdoor spaces that we have on our doorsteps. It was a crying shame when Welcome to Yorkshire were asked to put out a statement on behalf of our national parks that we didn't want people visiting them. It goes against the grain to say, come to Yorkshire, you're welcome, but actually don't come if you're going to litter, if you're going to urinate against people's homesteads, if you're going to be not social distancing in local shops. And we were seeing that in small areas of Malham or Burnsall or Skipton or out in Whitby or Filey. So I think that the role that we had to play was to demonstrate that actually, if there's going to be a future of the great outdoors and if Yorkshire is going to become a campaign going forward, we have to really demonstrate that there has to be a responsibility back to nature, the idea of leaving it as you found it, an appreciation of using stiles, an appreciation of actually cleaning stiles, an appreciation of sticking to pathways and not breaching the countryside code. Leaving it as you found it, I think, is really important. And I think that's something that we can take through our campaign next year to really ask people to appreciate what is not just on the doorstep, but actually the natural environment, but also the built environment. So if you look at this particular slide here, a young lady walking through the shambles at York there, there is a part for us all to play here, whether it's stopping at Rowley's Fudge Pantry on the left there, or whether it's stopping at Betty's for an afternoon tea. It's all about actually thinking, do we need to use public transport? Yes. Do we need to drive somewhere? Not necessarily. And that's something we've got to work with local authorities and some of our strategic players to make sure that if we're going to actually actively ask people to walk and walk, they do need to be able to move around the county. Now, if you think about our place of work now, working from home now has become the norm for most of us. So actually where you live and where you work isn't as important as it perhaps used to be. City centres like Leeds and Sheffield, York, Bradford, Huddersfield, Hull, Scarborough all need people to come back into the city centres, but it isn't going to be a workforce. There's no one at the moment working in Leeds or Sheffield, or very few. But actually that means we do still need to use them. So we need to be attracted back into these city centres and extol the virtues of something that Liz referred to last week, which is a workstation, or is it a workation, whereby actually you can go into a city centre, maybe not into your office, but you can work from a coffee shop, you can work from a restaurant, you can work from a hotel lobby, as long as you've got Wi-Fi, as long as you've got access to the internet. You can work from anywhere now, and I know that most of our local authority employees will probably be working at home for the considerable future. So there is a way to weave this into our daily vernacular. I'm just going to close that slide now, if you bear with me. We'll come out of that. So it should be back to me now, is it? Can you see me? Yeah, excellent. So Alex Dockery has joined in with the the webinar this afternoon. The Yorkshire campaign sounds brilliant. Have Public Health England shown any interest in supporting it, given the public health benefits? Alex, we're speaking with local authorities about the campaign every day through our area manager team. It's in its infancy, let's be honest. It's October, and we plan to launch this in its entirety in December, if I'm being pushy, but let's realistic. The 1st of January, when we all wake up having drunk and eaten too much, we want everyone to get out walking. We want 4 big walking weekends across the year next year. We want to culminate with 1 big walking weekend whereby we get the whole of the county walking together in unison. We won't need to close any roads. We won't need to apply for a licence. We can get people walking the perimeter of the county. We can get people walking a mile at home. We can get babies walking their first steps. We can get patients recovering from long-term illness and really celebrating the county and extol the virtues of Yorkshire. So whilst we haven't spoken with Public Health England yet, we're speaking with our local authority partners to really understand how this can have both a mental health and economic impact on the county and attract visitors from all over the world. You know, this isn't just about the 5 million people that live and work in Yorkshire. It's about attracting that national audience and then that global audience. So, Alex, any contacts that you can pass on to Emma Hudson, your area representative, that would be really useful. I'm just going to go back to some of the questions that came in before, such as what help is available for tourist attractions which have been adversely affected by COVID-19? And this comes from Lisa Bauman from Stump Cross Limited, but also at the very top I mentioned Mark's Farnsworth. So Mark, hope you're still there. What support is out there for industries? We're working very hard with the 4 regional LEPs. So up until yesterday, you could have applied for a Kickstart grant with the North Yorkshire and York LEP. And if you visit the industry pages of Welcome to Yorkshire, you will see that whilst we're a tourism body, we're also working hard with economic impact partnerships. We're working with CBI, we're working with the Federation of Small Businesses, we're working with other tourism bureaus across the country. I was speaking with my colleagues in Cumbria and Cornwall yesterday to understand how they're tackling the same, I suppose, obstacles and opportunities as we are. We're all in the same boat. So while Welcome to Yorkshire seems to be under that spotlight of existential crisis, we're all in the same boat. We're not impervious to financial constraints, but what we are doing is flying a flag for the region. Our ability to appear in the national press and in the national media has shown that we are able to fly the flag for the county. So, for example, if you saw the Channel 5 report the other week on All Creatures Great and Small success, you'll also probably see us cropping up over the next few weeks with our tree planting scheme. And actually, there's some real science behind our personal membership and our data capture. It's about an emotional attachment to Yorkshire that actually the Scots and the Welsh and the Irish have really underpinned over the last few years, that Illumini project. And whilst we're asking people to join our personal membership scheme to take part in a number of benefits, whether it's winning prizes to for overnight stays in city centre hotels or visitor attractions, it's actually a collection of data. We want to know that Liz Smales is of a certain age, and I won't ask Liz, of course, how old you are, but your likes and dislikes, how you travel around the county, what is your connection to the county? Your grandfather played cricket for Yorkshire, but let's say you're back out in Indonesia now. You're probably more in love and more in tune with what's going on back home than ever because you've a longing for your county. So think about the personal membership as a way to gather data all across the world, bring it back into one data refinery module that we can take care of, and then pass it out to you as members. I'll give you a perfect example. We've seen people in Australia, Malaysia, Hong Kong, all across Europe, South America, Australasia, sign up for our personal membership but want to plant trees because they want a stakehold in their county, whether that's they were born in Sheffield but they now live in Canberra, Australia. They were born in Halifax but they now live in America. And some of these people are actually major players in the world economy. They're philanthropists, they're business leaders, they're working in industries all across the world, but they want to be in tune with what's happening back in Yorkshire. We have received philanthropic donations that have enabled us to plant 130 trees in Nidderdale for frontline nurses in Halifax. We've seen families in Barnsley want to plant a tree as a permanent memorial to their grandfather who died in the First World War, that they've never met and have an emotional attachment to him, but they'll never meet him, so they want a permanent memorial to their grandfather. And again, it's building that diaspora of Yorkshire people all across the globe, which you could argue isn't welcome to Yorkshire's role, but actually it is, because it's about putting Yorkshire on the global map as a place, as a people, as a brand identity. And when we have anyone that is an ambassador of Yorkshire outside of the four walls of our county, it's their job to extol the virtues of everything that we're doing. So if we're communicating with them about some of our campaigns, about some of the things that are happening all across the county, they're acting as advocates as they go forward. Liz, if I can throw back to you one of the questions from the audience here. Which is, so going back to support, so there's been a number of grant giving schemes, there's been a number of fiscal, I suppose, outreach programs that the government have passed on through Welcome to Yorkshire, but also through various other bodies. Are you aware of any immediate support, financially or otherwise, for COVID-19 victims? And I'll tee you up here. So, for example, you own an accommodation business. What support did you get during COVID? And if we hit another lockdown, realistically, what would you expect from both local government and central government forthcoming? And I'll answer on the back of that of the latest scheme that we're aware of coming forward.
Okay, so we are a new business, but we had filed reports for 1 year, so we were able to take advantage of the furlough scheme. So I run that with my husband, and he was able to get that. But we weren't able to get a grant. Our business wasn't significant with that. We don't pay business rates, we pay mooring. So we did fall through the cracks on a lot of that. So when the bounce back loans came, we were quite grateful for that. Because, as I mentioned, by the early June, we had no bookings, and it was looking worrying. It costs us £5,000 a year just to keep one boat on the water. That covers the mooring, that covers the insurance, that covers the business license. But there was no support for that. It was a business niche that fell through the cracks. So when the bounce back loans came, yes, we were very appreciative of that. That said, immediately our business picked up, and we will probably close the year with 50% of our normal takings. And that will be sufficient to see us over the period of winter, especially now that we're getting inquiries into that period, those months where we would normally be very quiet and static and lower rates. So touch wood, we're not going to have to delve too far into that bounce back loan that we received. But what do I want from the government? Yes, certainly it would be greater support for the self-employed, all those industries that did fall through the cracks that have become evident, lessons learned from round one, that they would receive that support a little bit more going forward. The hospitality industry, yes, it is hit hard. And I think some serious questions need to be asked there by the government of whether those schemes that they've put in place are actually the right and working now. I'm hearing a lot from my industry colleagues that, well, not only the 10 o'clock curfew is not helping or effective, but also the table service only aspect is not beneficial. Not only does it, some properties and restaurants, they have the apps where you can order online on your phone. And I think it was one of the earliest seminars and webinars here at Welcome to Yorkshire. Somebody said sanitize your environment, but not the experience. And I think that was a really great piece of advice, because apps are great, but they do sanitize that experience. Hospitality is all about that personal interaction, that warm welcome, that being able to give advice. If you're in a restaurant, you can look at a menu on an app, but you can't ask a question about one of the dishes necessarily. The table-only service, those that have opted not to have apps, but the table-only service, that actually brings a lot more traffic and interaction between the staff and the guests, because they have to walk backwards and forwards past the tables and the guests more times than they would normally. So there's actually a greater interaction between the staff and the guests that is counterproductive to what they're actually trying to set out. So I think things like that, maybe you need to go back to the government, and as an industry we need to lobby that to say, okay, were they the right measures to put in place, and can that be reviewed in order to help the hospitality stay open during local lockdowns, and really review the situation more.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Just on that, so Mark, I'm going to address your question. Mark Farns with regards to a roadmap for, I suppose, opening up larger scale events. But in terms of government support, in terms of additional grant giving, or if it's the job support scheme, I would suggest your first port of call is the Welcome to Yorkshire industry channels. And what we plan to do with our area managers, as I mentioned through our strategy, is to work with local authorities, work with LEPs, work with other strategic partners that probably understand the inner workings of business better than us. We're a tourism agency, but we do understand how to market a business and how to amplify and promote messages. But in terms of furloughing, if that comes back, or if it's going to be a combination of what we've seen both in France and Germany with the job support scheme, the best place I would suggest is start with the Welcome to Yorkshire industry website, and we will direct you from there. Alex Dockery, who's on the call from York City Council, along with many of our other partners such as Wendy Ewell at Sheffield, I think's joined, and our colleagues in Harrogate and various other parts of the country, will be able to direct businesses to the latest support, guidance and help. But by joining Welcome to Yorkshire's affiliate membership, you will have access to all the resources up until the paywall, because ultimately we're a business, so we'd like to charge you for our expertise as well. But listen, I think the phrase of Yorkshire together has never been more apt, whereby we have to pass resources around. So if we can't answer the question, we'll direct you to someone who has. So Mark, let's start having a look at what the future of mass gatherings is going to look like. Only a couple of weeks ago, Welcome to Yorkshire hosted their first event of 2020, and that was a golf event, a socially distanced golf event with actually 200 participants over 2 days. But if you think back to January the 1st, and when I was joining Welcome to Yorkshire, we were looking ahead to 100 plus different events, festivals, the Great Yorkshire Show, the Tour de Yorkshire, our Y20 conference and our White Rose Awards, which would range from having hundreds of attendees to thousands of attendees to 100,000 plus attendees, if we're talking about stages of the Tour de Yorkshire. It's a long way off before we see these events coming back, but we proved only a couple of weeks ago that the COVID restrictions have to be an obstacle, but not a barrier. But it does take a leap of faith. It does take a joined-up approach, and it does take some brave trailblazers to go first. And I'm not saying that we are that trailblazer, but I think we should be. And on the night before the golf event, it was a toss of a coin whether we were going to put the event on, but we worked very closely with Bradford City Council and Harrogate District Council, because the event was in Ilkley, which transcends both Bradford and Harrogate Borough Council. And there was a high bar set. We had to work with the emergency planning department. We had to fill in full risk assessments. We had the rule of 6 introduced only 2 days before we launched the event. So the route map, Mark, it cuts both ways. It requires thorough planning. It requires risk and reward strategy. So, for example, Castle Howard have just announced their Christmas extravaganza, and it's a risk. But I think we have to take calculated risks, but we have to work hand in hand with local authorities. So if you're based in Sheffield, I would expect you to work with both ourselves and our colleagues at Sheffield City Council and the Sheffield City region to go, Mark and his colleagues are going out of business if they're not able to put larger scale events on. So we're not talking about 200-300 people all intermingling together. We might be talking about 50 to 100 or 200 people being in the same venue at the same time, but still coexisting under social distancing rules in their bubbles. And actually, if we don't push both central and local government on that, the flip side of the pandemic will be an unemployment pandemic. It will be a business and a mental health pandemic, because, Mark, you'll be out of business, as many of us will be. So the risk and reward strategy has to be calculated risks with a keen eye and ear on the latest advice for businesses to put socially distanced events on. But we have to be brave and we have to push the boundaries. We have to keep making sure that the wheels of industry keep on turning. So in terms of a route map and the latest intelligence is, if we look at live sport was expected to return the first week in October. That hasn't happened. It was going to be a football stadium with a quarter of their capacity. But actually, that was stopped, and I think it was a knee-jerk reaction that was necessary. But I think we've seen over the last few weeks that there is an appetite to put these events on, and that actually people now will adhere to rules. I think in the first few months of lockdown and restrictions, the rules were novel, and we probably did adhere to them probably more than we're doing now. But I think a recalibration that the events industry cannot return until 2 or 3 or 4 events are put on and prove the concept can work. So in terms of a roadmap, Mark, we're more than happy to work with you on putting socially distanced events on all across the county and proving it can be done. We have a huge resource of expertise in putting events on if we don't have the people anymore. We have direct tributaries to local government at very high level, whether that's the environmental health departments or public health departments. And actually, we want to do this. We want to, be that agency that can go first and put the events on. So in terms of a roadmap, work with us. And actually, I think we should be presenting the roadmap to local authorities and central government, because I think we hold the expertise within the county. So Mark, if you're still on board with the webinar, please do come in on that. And actually, Alex and Wendy and any of our other local authority colleagues, feel free to chip in on that with any advice or any intelligence that you've got yourself. So we're just going to move forward to a couple more questions. And if you can just bear with me a second. Okay. Other campaigns that Welcome to Yorkshire are going to be focusing on over the next 12 months. So we've spoken extensively about Yorkshire. That will be a 12-month event, but actually it will exist in perpetuity. It's not something that's going to go away after the 12 months, but it is something that we want to roll out over the next 12 months. We have partnered with Screen Yorkshire to extol the virtues of TV tourism. So again, there'll be lots of campaigns whereby we're wanting to attract an international audience when travel restrictions are relaxed, to move people around the county to some of these TV and film locations, as I mentioned in the strategy. And everyone can get involved in that, whether it's international tourists landing at Leeds Bradford Airport, whether they're arriving by car or many of our train stations, and they're going to the specific locations. Our job is to attract them to come earlier to Yorkshire, to stay longer and to spend more. We just mentioned professional football there. With Leeds United and Sheffield United being in the Premier League now, we have an opportunity to attract a global TV audience regularly to the county. And eventually, when people come to the county, we want them to be coming to Sheffield and Leeds the night before games, so that they can take in a theatre production, or they can take in a fine dining restaurant, or stay in one of our many hotels. But actually, we want them to come for the weekend with their families. So if they're coming to Leeds or Sheffield, we can push them out towards the coast. or we can push them into some of our more rural areas, or if they're coming with the family, which I would be, convincing them to go to the Yorkshire Wildlife Park or up to one of our many stately homes, or if it's in Sheffield, to get round Kelham Island, or if it's in Leeds, to go to Harwood House, or to visit one of our many museums. So there are so many campaigns that you can, as members, join in with next year. But actually, we also want to hear about your own campaign, so it cuts both ways. So welcome to Yorkshire, happy to lead from the front, and you may have seen our singing competition, which we've launched recently, which is the Song for Yorkshire. And actually, it's taken a bit of convincing as to why a tourism agency should promote a singing competition. Well, actually, what we're really wanting to do with a campaign like that is burst with pride all across the county. We want children, we want organisations, we want individuals to really sell Yorkshire to the rest of Yorkshire first and foremost. We don't need a lot of convincing, but actually during lockdown, what we did realise is, again, that appreciation of what's on our doorstep, maybe the things that we took for granted, things that we actually really love about our county. Celebrate the diversity, celebrate the commonality of some of the things, whether it's a fishing village on the coast or a city centre community anywhere in the county. So the Song for Yorkshire is inviting people through song to celebrate dialect, to celebrate communities, to celebrate what's unique about the county. And we know that through the power of song, actually, because of the use of social media during lockdown and the way that song was used, or creative language, we can actually probably sell Yorkshire, and actually its benefits through our members, but also through the personalities across the county. Let me just look at another couple of questions that we may not have run through here. And hello, by the way, to some of our members that are joining this afternoon, whether it's Claire Stephen from Woolton Hall, Craig Natras, we've got Rydale District Council, Andy Dawson at Yorkshire Cricket. So we mentioned sport and cricket. Our eventual aim is to really push the boundaries and bring, World Cups or Olympic Games to Yorkshire, or the Ryder Cup. And people think I'm crackers when I say these things, but who ever thought that the Tour de France would start in Yorkshire? So tell me I'm crackers in 30 years when the Ryder Cup is in Yorkshire. Tell me I'm crackers when we're playing American football at Yorkshire's Headingley Stadium between two universities out in the States, and it's beamed back to an audience of millions in the States. I believe it, and I do believe that we can achieve all the things that we're talking about. Okay, so back to one of the questions. Would like to hear a general update of how member organisations are faring, and if the increased restrictions are rising, and rising rates of infection are affecting visitor numbers. That's a question from Laura, Deputy General Manager, Marketing Manager at Bradford Theatres. So Laura, first and foremost, we feel your pain because you're in a sector of the visitor economy that has been hardest hit. One of our board members, Dan Bates, who's at Sheffield Theatres for the past 6 to 9 months, has really been fighting to keep his organisation going. And I think there was a wonderful quote from Sharon Watson, who's the Chief Executive at the Northern School of Contemporary Dance, that said, without art, without culture, without performance, society is bereft of something that we all take for granted. But without, a trip to the museum, without a trip to the theatre, the tourism industry just doesn't stack up. We don't just exist to be country walks or visits to the seaside or hotels or restaurants. We need the whole part of the puzzle. And actually, the industry is feast or famine right now. I think if you're on the call from a city centre tourism bureau or hotel, you will be telling us that actually the industry is following suit. That city centre hotels are really struggling in terms of their occupancy, and the rule of 6 and the rule of 10 o'clock curfew now is just another sucker punch that is stopping you from really celebrating your industry. Liz, you might want to come in on this in terms of how, I suppose, Skipton or some of our other members are faring, because if you are, I suppose, a bed and breakfast up in the Dales or in the Yorkshire coast, you've had a bumper August and September. But if you're a city centre hotel, or if you're a wedding venue, or if you're a event space such as Skipton Castle or Broughton Hall, where I was just the other week, the continuous changes in restrictions and laws aren't helping, but actually worse than that, they're offering uncertainty for you that might lead to you cancelling Christmas. And we saw that going to see York Gray's Hotel in York, Gracecourt Hotel in York just the other day that were saying it's that bad for them that they've decided that despite having a great July, August and September, they cannot commit to a Christmas campaign because they don't know if residents or guests will pull out the night before, whether their staff will feel safe, or whether it's actually just worth sitting this one out. So, Liz, some insight into how organisations are faring at the moment, both with the restrictions of the rule of 6 and I suppose rising rates and then the 10 o'clock curfew.
Yeah, certainly with the rule of 6, that has put some restrictions on a lot of accommodation that were maybe holiday homes that catered for larger groups. And we've had a lot of inquiries from bid businesses, but also some hospitality members that are not part of Skipton Bid, but in the area of how to best cope with that. And you know, the rule is very clear that no party greater than 6, and you can't book it as 2 separate parties that then arrive as one. So it's about making sure that is very clear on your website, making sure that your terms and conditions are up to date to reflect that, and also quite importantly, often on websites the date of which the copyright is forgotten. So we rectified that with a few of the bid businesses that were 2018, because if that's the case, then legal ratifications could come back at them. So please, you know, just make sure your legal copyright is updated at 2021, and then in a few months over to 2020, sorry, and then a few months to over 2021. In terms of Skipton itself, what we've done now is if you drive through in the next few days, you'll start to see the Christmas lights are already up. They were going through today, and we've brought that forward because the Christmas market is cancelled, as that historically attracted up to 30,000 people every day, or just for the Christmas lights switch on as well. And it's just impossible to control that many people in a COVID secure way. So unfortunately, like many of the towns, Skipton Christmas market has been cancelled. But the lights, bringing that forward to make sure that the town is an inviting area, hopefully attract people to come as the nights get longer and days get shorter, to come and visit the town, to shop there, and make it an inviting area. Sorry, James, what was one of the other questions? So I can't hear you.
Sorry, Liz, I suppose it was just some insight into how the curfew and the rule of 6 has really impacted on the uncertainty going into the Christmas period, which of course in the hospitality industry, well in fact across the whole industry, it's an opportunity to really capitalise. But many businesses we're seeing, unfortunately, are either cancelling Christmas because the risk is too high, or they're going into it probably later than they would have done. You know, you'll know better than I that, Christmas is planned, back in March, probably?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in June or July, I think I did actually post that. I really wasn't sorry not to be dealing with Christmas this year. But what we are seeing already is that restaurants in Skipton who adopted that deliver home takeaway services from the in the early lockdown phase, they're already promoting Christmas menus to have that delivered at their home, at people's homes. So that started already, and we see quite a bit of traction and interest for that. The 10 o'clock curfew, undoubtedly, as with everywhere, it has a huge effect, not just on the town itself, but the accommodation as well. And as has been touched on earlier, that there are elements of socializing that the society is starting to feel. We're missing that interaction with people. That loneliness is going to start setting in, and as the nights get longer, I do fear that is actually going to become more of a problem. I also touched on it earlier that I think that it's time for the government to, these practices were installed in best interest, but I think they do need to be reviewed now after testing them for a couple of months now. certainly the table only service. I think, you know, we're hearing from more and more of our bid businesses that that's actually detrimental to the cause. It creates more interaction between the staff and the guests than would normally be the case. So I think some of these practices were installed with the best of interest, but they need reviewing now. And I think maybe that's where, as an industry, we can go back and lobby and bring some suggestions forward of how that can be rectified.
Okay, thank you, Liz. So we've got about 5 minutes to finish off, and we've got a couple of questions that we'll just come on to. So Helen Jones from the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust. Do you have any dates planned for your 4 big walking weekends? We don't have the dates yet, Helen, but you can imagine that they're going to be winter, spring, summer and autumn. So again, we want this to be a campaign that transcends all 4 seasons. But actually, you know, for smaller members, we do think there's a way in here to join the dots. So, for example, I mentioned perhaps a walk a day, so 365 walks, quite ambitious, but these can be a mile round, as I say, a town centre. They can be a 10-15 mile walk in one of the Dales or North York Moors National Park, or countryside coastal walks. But actually, the whole idea would be to hang our hat on 4 potential weekends and really invite as many people to participate together, or actually on their own, but together on social media, if that makes sense. So that sort of spread across the county. And what's to say we can't eventually get some serious walkers doing the full perimeter of the county, which we've worked out is around 680 miles. So if you were to do that, that's about 1 million steps. So good luck if you want to really push the boundaries on that. But we'll unveil that, Helen, in due course. But please do get in touch if you want to be part of that. And of course, using our colleagues at the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust would be great to, again, understand the better nature, or understand better the natural environment, you know, our ecological and our natural environment, bringing in all aspects of what, you know, the Yorkshire tourism offer has. And actually included in the Yorkshire campaign will be a commitment to accessibility. So this is something that we're working on at the moment with an organisation called Access for All. And this isn't necessarily about walking, but of course walking does include people with mobility issues. Wheelchair users would consider themselves as walkers, but of course they need style-free walks. People with children and buggies need walks that are flat and they're accessible for families. But also people also have dependents that need the ability to change. So changing spaces, which again is a huge part of our remit going forward, to really demonstrate that if Yorkshire can be one of the most accessible places in the country to visit, there's an economic benefits to that, and we shouldn't be ashamed to talk about how we can attract an audience that perhaps don't feel that they can enjoy the merits of Yorkshire because they may not know where the best place to park if they're coming with a wheelchair or with a family member that does need to change regularly. So I think this is insight and expertise that we don't probably have in the building, but it's something that we're committed to. And I think that all members, both local authority and private sector partners, can really understand that if Welcome to Yorkshire can lead from the front on accessible tourism, we can all benefit. So again, the Yorkshire campaign, you know, weaves in and weaves out of that, but actually it will be more than that. It will be making sure that your visitor attraction, your business, whether that's in hospitality, whether that's in any other sector, really understands the access needs of an audience that perhaps, and let's be honest, we may or may not have catered for in the past due to ignorance, or maybe due to lack of intelligence or insight. And that's something, again, that Welcome to Yorkshire really want to lead on the front foot from, so that we can demonstrate across the whole county and across the country that we're taking these sectors of society, but also the economy, very seriously. So I think that's it. Thanks for joining. We're about a couple of minutes before 2 o'clock. We will be putting more webinars on if the interest is there. This is a free service to all our members and all affiliate members. Natalie, who's been helping me this afternoon, and Liz and Chris in the background, some of our colleagues, I'd like to thank you for your time. There's some emails that we need to follow up. So, Mark, we will follow up with regards to that roadmap for bringing back, maybe not mass participation events, but certainly events with bigger crowds than just are permitted at the moment. We have to keep stretching those boundaries. But please get in touch with us. Join us on Twitter at Welcome to Yorkshire Industry, at WTY Industry, and of course follow all the latest updates on our industry website. So thank you. I'm off for a cup of tea. Speak to you all later on, and thanks for your time. Bye bye.